Hello, you beautiful, awakened and evolving souls. Welcome to another video of concepts of the law of one. And here we're going to talk about colors, the densities of consciousness, which is a very vast topic. And as my usual disclaimer, this is not a thorough explanation of it. This is just an eye-opener, if you will, for this concept, which is really fascinating as you get into the material. And I guess that's why we have so much content. And speaking of content, I create videos on the raw material, which you can always find here. There is a lot of those videos that I have made about densities of consciousness. So if you just search in my YouTube channel, Densities, you're gonna find a lot of information. So whatever you feel inclined to find, from second density to fourth and fifth density and everything else is just there. So that's all within the raw material, and this, again, is just going to be an introductory definition of the densities of consciousness, which is something that we find a lot in the material, and it is that holographic spectrum of the creation, which is the octave. And if you've heard that word, if you read that word, this is the octave. This is also what we refer to as the octave. So before starting, we have covered intelligent infinity, intelligent energy, logos, the primal distortions of the law of one. All of this is important to grasp a good idea of what the densities of consciousness are, because now we're getting into that. That's just the creation itself, the densities of consciousness. And we, of course, have all these colors of what we call chakras, the energy centers. But these are also, and this is a good note to make here, Ra sometimes called this true color green, true color blue, true color yellow. They're referring to this sort of vibration of the creation. They're referring to the density itself, because they can say yellow energy or yellow vibration, and that would mean the sub-yellow that is us right here. Like our solar plexus, for example, is yellow right here. And so we have true color is all the densities of consciousness. Now, for this, I want to give you a trip through the whole octave. And like I said, we already covered primal distortions, the logos as the creative principle, and so on. So now what are we creating? The spectrum of light is being refracted. Yes, it's being created for experience. And this is what the logos does. So now we see this prism expressed here. And the process of evolution is going to be energy. There are no entities. There are no social memory complexes. There is nothing, but at a fundamental level, there is energy. And that energy is intelligent. We covered that already, intelligent energy. And that is light, love light. And all those concepts start to make sense now within the model that we're creating here. But what we experience as entities is energy in manifestation, but also describing specific patterns at discrete velocities, as Don used to call it, and Ra used to agree with that. So all that means is just patterns of movement. Without getting into any complexity, unnecessary complexity, all we're talking about is patterns of movement. And when energy first starts manifested within the densities, and the first density of consciousness would be the red ray. It would be associated with red. And that is the one of the elements. And that's what this means right here. The elements of fire, water, earth and air. And those are the beginnings of matter itself. That's what starts creating the elements. Not for nothing, we have elements as the four elements, and then we have the periodic table of all the elements, because protons and electrons like to get together and do things. And those things are simply the manifestation of energy in different patterns of vibration. Every single element, and now we're talking about the periodic table, every single one of them is just a movement in specific patterns of protons and electrons moving around and forming specific elements, which we call matter. Matter doesn't exist, it's just energy, just like entities don't exist, it's energy. However, we experience matter as a solid thing, and we experience entities as a supposedly sentient being, right? But the most fundamental entity, as Ra describes it, is the photon. The photon is the most basic entity, and that entity is moving and it's evolving. So that evolution starts from the beginning of first density, and that would be the density of awareness and matter, as I put it here. Now, why awareness? We usually associate awareness with us, third density beings, humans. We are aware, but animals are aware too. We can say that. You scare an animal, it goes running. You do things to a plant, and you can register their responses, so they are aware. And even at the matter level, at the solids or the simple elements that conform our reality, you can say that they're also aware. Why would they behave in specific ways? They're showing some sort of awareness that they want to behave in that pattern. And hydrogen will be a proton and an electron, and water will be hydrogen and oxygen, and that's just how it is. They do that. That's what they do. It's a very simple and very primitive form of consciousness from our perspective, but it is consciousness. And when you bang something, it does a noise, and that is awareness. It is aware of its reaction, and that's what it emits. So this is the density of awareness. Now, if you want to see it a little bit less abstract, you can say that awareness is the first thing that happened with the Creator. The Creator became aware of itself, and that is the fundamental beginning of creation. It is awareness of self. So awareness is the foundation. And it's funny because we'll find a relationship between first density and seventh density as we go along, especially at the end. So this is the moment where energy manifests. It starts in a timeless state, as Ra describes it, and then it starts becoming matter, starts becoming something. And this is the foundation. Now, again, like I said, this is not going to be an exhaustive and very thorough explanation, so we're going to have to move to second density now. Now, what happens with matter is that matter starts to complexify itself. It starts to get more matter together, and it'll start behaving in different ways that other elements don't move or don't get together. And so that starts the beginning of second density consciousness, which is growth and movement. Those are the two things that we can perceive, and we're very perceptive that matter doesn't seem to move that much, even though it is moving at a very high rate, but it's not moving to us. Yet matter becomes organic to a degree, and that organic molecules start behaving in ways that we can call it alive. And that starts the beginning of the single cell organisms and amoebas and so on. That's at the lowest level of movement, bacteria and so forth, all the way until we get to more complex life forms, if you will, that are plants and animals. And those are at the top of the of second density. You can see the same thing happening in first density when we look at the elements, and the elements forming in different ways. In fact, energy is random and chaotic in first density. It's in a timeless state where it hasn't coalesced yet. And then after that, it starts forming. That would be a primitive form of first density. And the first entities, like Ra calls them, is the four elements. And those four elements then start to become more and more complex until the top, which is the elements that we know in the periodic table, which is matter. And that matter would be at the top of first density. So it gives rise to second density. Second density is, again, animals and plants. And so it is concerned with growth and movement again. you would think, why is this happening? Well, we have explored already what is the upper spiraling light, which is the intelligence in energy, of intelligent energy. That is the intelligence, to me at least in my books, is the intelligence that makes energy move in specific patterns to reach the creator. So it starts at the very beginning with timeless chaos and energy, random energy movements, until it starts coalescing into first density. And from there, that upper spiraling light starts acting upon energy. That intelligence is acting to form complex organisms like we know ourselves now. And so growth and movement is related to that because it's seeking the light. That's what Ra says. It's that upper spiraling light is the push towards the light. And a very simple and crude example of that Ra gives is our trees. Our trees grow towards the light. We feed from light. That is the ultimate reality. We are feeding from light. The sun provides energy, and that energy is transformed in various ways through our trophic levels until we get food, nourishment. And in higher densities, of course, we can get into sun gazing and all of that, which is available for third density, but that's another topic. But in higher densities, we also, of course, feed from light. Everything is light. The only possibility of forming anything is through light. So now, growth and movement leads to the formation of the most complex organism. And I like to joke that our evolution is really, and I can't take credit for this, this is Alan Watts who made it available to me, is that we are tubes. We are simple tubes that take things from one end and excrete it from the other end. And so we have complexify ourselves so we can have extremities and nervous systems and a ganglia, so we can inform ourselves of our surroundings and so on. But in reality, all we are is a tube, and that tube takes in something and excretes it from the other end. And so that complexifies to the point of humans. That is third density. The beginning of third density is this primitive self that knows that exists. And that is called the density of self-awareness, because we become self-aware, something that hasn't happened to matter or animals, plants in the past. It does happen to animals and plants towards the end of their cycle because they start becoming aware of themselves. And that's what gives them identity, and that identity is the gift of the spirit. The spirit is nothing else but the self-reflection of self. So whenever you hear the word spirit, just think about that. The only thing that spirit means is that you are reflecting upon yourself. That is, the creator knows itself. That is self-awareness. And so spirit is granted, it is given, so to speak. Nobody gives it. It's just self-obtained by self-awareness. And so this is the density of of self-awareness, third density. We know that's humans. And us humans then evolve into fourth density. And in fourth density is where we open the heart to the universe. Ross says, I believe in session 57, that to the self-aware being that is balanced and is self-accepted, it opens itself to the universe, which it is. That universe that we are is what we open ourselves to in fourth density. And so at the higher levels of third density is where we as humans start to realize that we are the universe. This is our mystery teachings tells us this, from Egypt all the way to Buddhism or occultism here in the Western world. That's what it's teaching us, that we are the universe. We are energy, and everything is energy. We are infinite beings. And so this is the process of evolution now that doesn't happen. And here's the difference between the physical and the spiritual. And so the physical stops at self-awareness, and that is the beginning of the spiritual evolution, if you will. And spiritual evolution, if you remember the word spirit, is the capacity of you knowing yourself as the creator. So spiritual evolution is actually self-realization, or further enhancing your self-identity, not as an ego identity, of course, but as the creator, as the universe. So the more you feel the universe, the more you evolve spiritually. So in fourth density, it's called love or understanding. A lot of times we use love and understanding, but I like to use this word specifically because in session, I believe session 16, question 32, I remember because 16 times 2 is 32. So in question 32 of session 16, Ra says that in the density of love or understanding, the seeking starts to become more stronger, the seeking for service to others. So it is love or understanding. Now, why do I make that distinction? Why is it important? Because to me, the word love tends to be sometimes mistaken here in our human language. And understanding is a little bit more, shall we say, broader in its concept. Because understanding is just that density that we begin to comprehend, understand the universe as we, or us being the universe. And so love or understanding is what is fourth density. And those are the lessons of fourth density. Then we move into fifth density, where instead of in fourth density, where we are we're seeking to serve the self, and we're still polarizing to a degree. Here is where we form a social memory complex, by the way. The vast majority of the universe creates a social memory complex in fourth density. Very small amounts, according to Ra, does it in third density. So it's very rare that a social memory complex is formed here. But here is imperative, because that is the way in which entities evolve from fourth density. Even negative beings need to form a social memory complex, which I like to call the fourth density corporation, because that's what they do. They form a sort of army as well. You can call it an army with their own hierarchy. And they need to do this in order to polarize themselves furthermore into their 99%, I suppose they need to get to. But I think the percentage, even though I don't think it's given in the raw material, I think it's about 97% or so for positive. Now, polarizing positively or negatively here is not that really important, because it's already a given that you have selected your path, and you just simply polarize. There is no need to do much work in consciousness here, because we already chose that. But in any case, it's that's the purpose. We create a social memory complex and we serve others. We seek in the creation our way to serve others, and that way to serving others is our sharing of love, and that starts to open a lot more our understanding, which is what starts to bring the light, our ability to play with the light, to use the light, and that light is fifth density. So in fifth density, we're going to accumulate this light, and we're going to understand a lot more its use, and this is what we call wisdom. And so here, just a little add-on here, we don't need to work as a social memory complex because the work is independent or individual, but it is, of course, encouraged, I suppose. It's possible, and I think the majority of people do, or the majority of entities move to fifth density as a social memory complex and continue like that, but I'm not sure. So in any case, Ra said that it's not needed, but it's always there if it's useful. And from wisdom, we start getting knowledge from sixth density. These are the teachers, as well as the teachers to fourth density is the fifth density. And so sixth density starts teaching those of fifth density to use the love and light in a way that it'll create coherence so they can graduate into sixth density, which is the density of unity. It's the unity, it's the density of love, light, or intelligent energy, if you remember. It's also light, love. So I just didn't want to fill this up completely, but love, light, light, love is the same thing. And it's that density in which we balance love and light together. This is where we start using intelligent energy as a means for everything. This is the form maker body, which is 6th density as well, in which we create what we want. This is how Ra used to create, or what they used to create the pyramids, intelligent energy. They are very familiar with this manipulation of matter, if you will. Probably a wrong word there, but it's just talking to the everlasting rock, I think they called it, which is that energy that exists there. And so here in the density of unity, now unity, why is it unity here and infinity there? Like, what is the difference between unity and infinity? To me, unity still implies that there are manyness. And so this is the great teaching, to me, that happens in 6th density, where there is no more perception of manyness and service to others, but just everything starts to be seen as one service. There is no differentiation. That's why polarity here is annihilated. There is no more polarity. Everything is seen as just one organism. And those are the teachings that lead to the 7th density, which is the last density, which is called timelessness and foreverness. Now, I told you that there is a sort of relationship between 7 and 1, 7th density and 1st density, and that would be the timelessness. We're approaching timelessness, and here is timeless states of energy. So you can see how energy starts to behave in the same way as it began. And that leads us to the octave, which is the next density in which everything repeats again and it starts all over again, but with the new knowledge that has been acquired through the whole octave. And the octave, or the 8th density, is something that Ra shrugs their shoulders and say, we have no idea what it is in there, so we cannot talk about it. And neither do I, but you can already imagine that this is just a cyclical process. This is the heartbeat of creation, in which everything, all the information that is obtained through the densities of consciousness is brought to the one single mind, or infinite mind. I can't even call it an infinite mind. It's just the mystery-clad being, as Ra calls it. So this is infinity. Infinity is not unity. Unity implies a sort of manyness that comes into one. Infinity is just infinity. There's nothing else to talk about there. Now, one thing I can say about 7th density, which Ra said, and this is just a little bonus here, is that there is something called a mind-body-spirit totality beingness. I know there is actually such thing. In fact, it's a mind-body-spirit complex totality beingness. So it's one of those things that Ra likes to talk about. So what is this? This is the resource of the higher self. So before the entity dissolves into nothingness, what is left of the entity is just that database, which I like to call it a database of all the experiences that had, and it can give it back to the higher self. Now, why does it have to give it to the higher self? I suppose because communication from 6th density is easier and better to the lower densities than it is from 7 densities. And I mean, I'm just thinking very human here, but that is what happens. The mind, body, spirit, totality, beingness complex is giving all the information to the higher self, which resides in 6th density. I should have mentioned that. But the higher self is taking all the database from the closest thing to infinity, and I like to equate it to the entity is approaching the event horizon of the black hole of singularity of the creator. And before it does that, it is leaving behind all the experiences and all the knowledge and understanding of that entity, or I don't know if you can call it an entity at that point, but it's just that information is there, and this is where the higher self takes it from. So That is the whole 7 densities with all their different entities and lessons and so on. And that is the end of the octave, but it's not the end as the end of what we know in humanity, the end finalization, but it is a new beginning, which starts all over again, like I said, from the first density of awareness. From there, I don't know. I can speculate, but I don't want to. So that's all I got for the 7 densities of consciousness, the whole octave, like I explained. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it's making sense in this series. If not, please let me know if there's any other concept that you're interested in knowing about that I haven't explained here. I tried to put this series in a way that is gradually building on the previous videos, and it starts making even more sense, so you can know and refer to intelligent energy if you don't know what it is, or intelligent infinity, or the logos, and so on. So again, leave me any comments if you want anything. Like, subscribe if you haven't. I appreciate you watching these videos. I appreciate you commenting, and I appreciate you coming back for the next one, which is going to be time, space, and space-time. What's the difference between those two? I'll see you in that video.